Hey guys, Dawson Wadrick Nerdy in many ways, and I realize I have not made a sports video in a long time where I cover a certain athlete or team or just a certain sport in general, and so I apologize for that, and I'm going to correct that mistake by making a video today concerning a sports topic. And so that topic today, I want to put my word into something that's been debated a lot in the past few years concerning the NBA, and that is the GOAT discussion. And many people start by comparing LeBron James and Michael Jordan. Those are the easy ones to start debating about because in recent years, LeBron James has really become the face of the NBA. And so there's been heavy discussion as to, well, who takes the throne as the greatest of all time? Does it stay with Michael Jordan or does it move on to the newer age with LeBron James? And so, first off, I just want to say that so many people get gypped in this conversation. And so many great players have played in the NBA that deserve to at least be mentioned in this discussion, mainly Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I mean, you also have Kobe Bryant, and then even Tim Duncan, who's recently retired from the NBA, deserves at least a part of the discussion because of his consistency. And mentioning Kobe Bryant, before I get into the debate between LeBron James and Michael Jordan, I just want to point something out about Kobe Bryant that I feel like a lot of people don't really quite understand. And it's actually something that a friend of mine brought up to me the other day when we had this discussion. He mentioned how a lot of people say Kobe Bryant is a carbon copy of Michael Jordan, which is pretty true. A lot of things that Michael Jordan did, Kobe tried to reflect and to imitate into his play style, and he was really successful for it, winning 5 NBA championships. And my friend said this analogy, which I thought was really impressive, is that if you have a student, let's say this student is Michael Jordan, who aces the test, studied really hard, worked really hard, and basically worked his way to getting that 100% on the test. And they have another student, let's say Kobe Bryant, who sees the work and study habits that Michael Jordan had, and he implements those and gets 100% on the test himself. Does that make him any less good of a student? No, of course it doesn't. It makes it so that he learned from somebody else, but it does not make him any less greater of a student than the prior. And so I feel like that's a good explanation as to why I feel like Kobe Bryant should be mentioned in this discussion more. But we'll move on from there. And so like the usual debate goes, when we talk about the differences between LeBron James and Michael Jordan. Now, my stance is this. I think Michael Jordan is the greatest of all time. And this is not to bash anything that LeBron James has done in his career. He's had a fantastic career. He's played extremely well. He's become the face of the NBA in recent years. He's appeared in 9 NBA Finals, 8 of them were consecutive, which is a feat all on its own despite being in a weak Eastern Conference. But he's still a fantastic player, once in a generation kind of talent. But I'm going to be explaining why I feel like personally that Michael Jordan still holds the throne of the greatest of all time. And I feel like why he will hold the greatest of all time for a long time. Now, my first part of the discussion is that people in the media and a lot of people out there just in general will basically use this debate or this argument point that I'm going to mention as the only part of the argument that they need, right? They talk about how at the age of 34, which is LeBron James' age right now, at the age of 34, compared to LeBron James and Michael Jordan, LeBron James has more points and assists in his career than Michael Jordan did. And so people say, well, that's the end of the discussion. At the same age, LeBron James has more points, more assists, more finals appearances. That's the end of the discussion. And that is simply not true. That is simply not a cohesive argument to simply step back and say, oh, I've done my job. It's not. Because if you think about it, there's some things that disrupt those statistics. The statistics don't necessarily tell the whole story. And here's why. When LeBron James was drafted into the NBA, this is back when this was allowed, he was drafted straight out of high school, and he was 18 years old. Okay, so pretty impressive. But when Michael Jordan was drafted, and that wasn't allowed, he went to the University of North Carolina, where he did win a national championship, something that LeBron James never did. He was 22 years old when he was drafted. And so by the time both these players are 22 years old, LeBron James has 4 extra years of statistics in points and assists ahead of Michael Jordan. And then not even to mention the 1 year that Michael Jordan retired and played baseball. So that makes 5 extra years statistically that LeBron James has an advantage of over Michael Jordan. And so that's why the statistics lie. That's why you can't trust that argument. The second part of my discussion, I kind of want to talk about the mental toughness of both players. Again, I mentioned how this isn't a bash on LeBron James. I really respect everything he's done, although he's not my favorite player. But I do believe that Michael Jordan, in his prime and throughout his career, was more mentally tough than LeBron James has been throughout his career. And I'm only going to be pointing out one instances in each of their careers, both in the NBA Finals, to make this point. Now I'm going to start talking about with LeBron James. His second time playing against San Antonio Spurs in the NBA Finals in a Heat uniform, which they eventually lost to the San Antonio Spurs, he had many moments where he showed a lot of mental weakness. There was times where he was not playing so hot, not shooting so well, and he was doubting himself, which Michael Jordan really never did. And he would tell Coach Erik Spoelstra, take me out, just take me out. Again, something Michael Jordan never did. Michael Jordan would will his way to find a way to produce for his team and will his team to victory, whereas LeBron James opted just to step out. And then, of course, you have the time where LeBron James started cramping at AT&T Center when the air conditioning was broken. And they were on offense. He drove the lane, started cramping, and stood on the offensive baseline while his whole team ran back on defense. And then he had to get carried off the court for cramps. Which, to me, I know cramps are a serious thing, and cramps can be painful, and they can really stop you from performing, but I feel like that was a very embarrassing moment for both the Heat organization and LeBron James himself. I feel like he could have at least made an effort to go back on defense, but instead he just stood there and let his teammates take the fall defensively. And again, was needed to be carried off the court. But then you look at the flip side to Michael Jordan as well in the NBA Finals against the Utah Jazz and the dynamic duo of John Stockton and Karl Malone, arguably one of the best point guard center duos of all time. Michael Jordan had the flu game, or if you want to call it the food poisoning game or the hangover game, whichever you believe, he still had flu-like symptoms, right? He had severe dehydration, he had diarrhea, he just wasn't really able to breathe very well, and he was just exhausted. He really could not stand still without possibly fainting. When he was moving, he was fine. When he was sitting still, he was exhausted. But with those conditions, with flu-like symptoms, Michael Jordan played for 44 minutes in this game and scored 38 points. And that, to me, shows how mentally tough he was, despite the reasoning for that sickness, of him fighting through that and playing the way that he did and eventually helping his team to win the NBA Finals. And speaking of the NBA Finals, one of my last main points I want to make is talking about both the finals play of LeBron James and Michael Jordan. Now, Michael Jordan, in comparison to LeBron James, has appeared in less NBA Finals. Michael Jordan appeared in 6, whereas LeBron James has appeared in 9 up to this point. Whether he appears in more in the future is yet to be seen. But LeBron James has appeared in 9. Despite having more finals appearances, Michael Jordan, in my opinion, is a better finals performer because, well, first off, he was undefeated in the finals. He wouldn't be denied. He made the NBA Finals and he won. Doesn't matter who it was. And in fact, none of his NBA Finals ever went to a Game 7. All of them were 6 games and lower. Whereas LeBron James is 3-6 in the NBA Finals. And I'm going to talk about their individual performances in the finals. Where Michael Jordan, his lowest average points per game in an NBA Finals was 31.2 points per game. 31.2, which is really impressive. I mean, it's the NBA Finals. It's the last two standing, the best 2 teams in the league facing off. He was scoring 31.2 points per game. And the highest points per game he ever scored is actually the record for points per game in a finals series with 41 points per game. And so he was a monster in the NBA Finals. Again, he would not be denied. He was so mentally tough, he was so driven, and just had that desire to win, that killer mentality that many people reference when they mention Michael Jordan. Now, if you look at LeBron James, he has averaged as low as 17.8 points per game in the finals, and this is against the Dallas Mavericks in his first year in a Heat uniform. He played terrible. He was absolutely awful, and it shocked everybody. LeBron James in the NBA Finals only averaged over 30 points per game 3 times in his 9 trips. 3 times. Every other time he's averaged lower than 30, and once lower than 20. Whereas Michael Jordan never averaged, again, lower than 31.2 points per game. Over 30 points per game in an NBA Finals in his career. Never went lower than 31, ever. Which is incredibly impressive to me, especially in an era that was so defensive and so defensive minded. And it makes it even that much more impressive to me. Then my last little thing that I want to mention about the difference between Michael Jordan and LeBron James. Michael Jordan, I feel like, has a little bit more humility when it comes to basketball than LeBron James does. Michael Jordan never called himself the GOAT. He never considered himself that. He carried himself in that manner because he was the greatest. He just had a winner mentality. He wanted to win regardless. And because of that humility, he was able to play for one coach the majority of his career. Of course, being Phil Jackson. Of course, when Phil Jackson is one of your main coaches in your career, you can't necessarily complain. But the flip side of this, if you look at LeBron James, in fact, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think he ever had a coach longer than 4 seasons. Ever. And I think that was Eric Spoelstra. Because LeBron James wants to be in charge of everything. Again, he's a great player, great athlete, incredible specimen of an athlete, and I cannot argue with that. But he is not nearly as coachable as Michael Jordan was. Not even to the slightest, especially nowadays. LeBron James, if he doesn't like something about a coach, they're gone really quickly. And oftentimes, coaches want to do their job, they want to get it and call the plays, and then LeBron James steps in and says, no, this is my team, I'm going to call it. It's not how it works. There's a coach for a reason. And so I don't see LeBron James being a very good coachable player, and that's the main difference between Michael Jordan and LeBron James in that aspect as far as humility is concerned. And so that's my discussion today. I just wanted to put that out there. I mean, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I just really wanted to put it out there, my opinion about these stats and these different circumstances in both these players' careers, as well as just bring up some of the great things that Michael Jordan did for the game of basketball, and as far as becoming the greatest of all time. And so again, you guys can like and subscribe to this channel. Also go to my different pages that I have on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram right here. And I'll see you guys later.